Imagine this. The person who spent months or years controlling, manipulating, and destabilizing your life suddenly receives a message from you. One line that changes everything. One line that stops them cold. This isn't a dramatic rant, a tearful goodbye, or a plea. It's simple, it's firm, and it triggers something they can't fix: instant regret. If you've ever been in a situation where someone refuses to respect your boundaries, pause now and think, what would your goodbye message look like? Comment strong if you're ready to take back control of your narrative. Narcissists live on influence, attention, and emotional supply, and their entire sense of self depends on feeling powerful in their relationships. They measure success not by mutual respect or genuine connection, but by how much control they have over the people around them. This is why when someone finally chooses to leave them definitively, it hits at the very core of their identity. A goodbye message is not just words to a narcissist. It is the severing of their access to validation, admiration, and emotional engagement. They are suddenly confronted with the reality that their influence, which they may have taken for granted for months or even years, is gone. This loss is experienced as both shocking and personal because they have built a world in which people bend to their needs, excuse their behavior, and absorb the fallout of their manipulation. When that world collapses around one decisive statement, they are left with a vacuum they cannot immediately fill. The psychological impact is immediate because narcissists are not used to boundaries being enforced with clarity and calmness. Most people, when faced with their patterns, argue, plead, or try to explain themselves, which allows the narcissist to maintain engagement. A carefully crafted goodbye message removes that engagement entirely. It does not beg for attention, explain behavior, or justify decisions. It simply states a fact. The relationship is over, the dynamic has changed, and the narcissist no longer has access to your emotional energy. This level of finality disrupts their internal narrative. They are forced to face their loss without a way to spin it or manipulate the story. Unlike other interactions, there is no opening for charm, intimidation, or subtle coercion. Moreover, the goodbye message functions as a mirror. It reflects the narcissist's true impact and exposes their inability to retain people who see them clearly. This triggers confusion, envy, and a sudden recognition that their perceived omnipotence is fragile. They are left with the stark reality that no amount of manipulation can restore what they have lost, and that emotional supply, which they crave more than anything, has been definitively cut. In essence, the goodbye message is devastating not because it attacks them, but because it removes the very thing that keeps them feeling whole: control over another person's heart, mind, and attention. When delivering a goodbye message to a narcissist, the words themselves carry more weight than any explanation, anger, or plea could. The power lies in its conciseness, calmness, and detachment. A narcissist expects reactions: confusion, rage, justification, or emotional pleading, because these responses feed them. They thrive on seeing that their influence still has an effect. When a message is brief, measured, and free from emotional overdrive, it completely upends their expectations. It communicates strength without aggression, clarity without blame, and finality without drama. This approach denies them the opportunity to manipulate your words, twist your tone, or prolong the interaction for their benefit. In other words, the message itself becomes a tool of empowerment, not just communication. Calmness is crucial. Narcissists are finely attuned to emotional spikes because those spikes signal vulnerability or engagement. If you write or speak in anger, despair, or desperation, it may give them satisfaction, proof that they still matter and that you are reacting to them. But a calm, composed message demonstrates that you are emotionally grounded and no longer dependent on their validation. It signals that you have regained control over your narrative, which is far more threatening than any angry tirade could ever be. The detachment in the tone communicates that the decision to leave is not impulsive or emotional, but deliberate, and therefore unassailable. It's this combination of brevity, composure, and neutrality that transforms a goodbye from a simple statement into a psychological blow. Conciseness also ensures that there's no room for debate or misinterpretation. Every extra word gives a narcissist an opportunity to twist your meaning or find a flaw to exploit. A short, direct message leaves them with no gaps to exploit, no emotional threads to pull, and no narrative to control. It also reinforces boundaries clearly. The relationship is over, interaction will end, and their influence no longer applies. This level of precision and self-respect shocks them because it contradicts everything they expect from someone they have tried to control: reaction, explanation, or negotiation. In essence, the goodbye message is devastating not because it attacks, but because it demonstrates that you no longer exist in their realm of control. It shows that you are independent, grounded, and resolute, all qualities they cannot undermine. This is why a concise, calm, and detached message triggers instant regret and disrupts their sense of superiority. When a narcissist receives a goodbye message, the reaction it triggers is often instant regret. And this is rooted in their loss of control and influence. Narcissists are acutely aware of their social and emotional power. They measure success by how much sway they hold over others, how easily they can provoke, manipulate, or bend people to their will. When you deliver a goodbye with clarity and finality, it forces them to confront something they rarely face: the permanent loss of their influence. Unlike typical disagreements or conflicts where they can twist the narrative, charm, or intimidate, a definitive goodbye removes all avenues for engagement. There is no argument to win, no manipulation to deploy, no reaction to provoke. This sudden void creates a vacuum that feels alarming to them because it exposes the fragility of their dominance. The regret is intensified by the realization that their control has been denied, deliberately and calmly. Or narcissists may have assumed that, given time or effort, you would return to the pattern of engagement that previously fed them. The goodbye, delivered with composure and self-respect, proves that you are no longer available as a source of supply. They see that their manipulative tactics, gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or charm, no longer work. This recognition is painful because it forces them to acknowledge that their perceived invincibility is illusory. The regret comes not from your departure itself, but from the stark awareness that they failed to maintain the power dynamic they so heavily relied on. Furthermore, narcissists are obsessed with status and social perception. The goodbye message also signals to them that their reputation, influence, or ego has suffered a blow. They have lost a person they counted on to validate them, and there is no immediate way to recover that validation. Their mind races through what-ifs, imagining the control they will never regain. This internal turmoil manifests as regret, jealousy, and often attempts to reassert influence in the short term. However, if the goodbye is final and boundaries are maintained, the message's impact endures, leaving them with the enduring reality of their loss, a loss they never anticipated and one they cannot easily reverse. After receiving a definitive goodbye, a narcissist often attempts to manipulate guilt or provoke but these tactics are largely ineffective if you remain unmoved. Narcissists are experts at testing boundaries and exploiting emotional openings, so the moment you signal finality, they instinctively try to regain control. This can take many forms: messages designed to elicit a reaction, feigned vulnerability, sudden charm, or even subtle accusations. The goal is always the same: to pull you back into engagement, to reestablish the dynamic in which they hold influence over your emotions. They rely on your participation, so if you respond with anger, justification, or explanation, you unintentionally feed the very power structure the goodbye was meant to dismantle. The danger for you lies in recognizing that these tactics are not about reconciliation or understanding. They are strategic attempts to provoke self-doubt, guilt, or a reaction. Narcissists have spent time learning how you respond to emotional cues, so they know precisely what is likely to elicit a response. They may say things like, "I just wanted closure," or "I'm really hurt you feel this way," creating the illusion of vulnerability. But beneath the surface, the purpose is control. Any engagement from you, whether it is defensive, apologetic, or explanatory, becomes fuel for their sense of dominance. Your calm and non-reactivity, on the other hand, frustrates them because it denies them the outcome they expect. Remaining unmoved is crucial. Silence is the most powerful reinforcement of your goodbye. It communicates that the boundary is real and non-negotiable, leaving the narcissist to face the loss without any new emotional data to manipulate. Attempts at guilt or provocation lose their potency because they rely on eliciting an emotional response. The absence of engagement deprives them of supply and forces them to confront a reality they cannot spin or control. Ultimately, the goodbye's effectiveness is measured by your consistency. Any wavering explanation or reaction gives the narcissist an opening. By staying detached and maintaining your boundaries, you ensure that their attempts to manipulate or provoke fail. This denial of engagement is what solidifies the regret and awareness of loss in the narcissist's mind, leaving them powerless to reverse the impact of your decisive departure. The most effective goodbye message focuses on boundaries and personal growth rather than blame or criticism. Because narcissists are hypersensitive to judgment and cannot tolerate being attacked. If you frame your departure as a list of their faults or try to explain why they failed you, the message loses its power. It becomes reactive, emotional, and negotiable, all of which plays into their hands. Narcissists are experts at twisting criticism into a story where they are the victim and you are unreasonable. To truly trigger regret, the goodbye must remain about you, your needs, and your growth, not about what they did wrong. This removes the leverage they rely on and reframes the departure as a demonstration of self-respect, not retaliation. When the focus is on personal growth, it communicates that the choice to leave is intentional, thoughtful, and final. For example, a message might say, "I am prioritizing my well-being and focusing on the life I want to build," or "I am moving forward with clarity and peace, and I will no longer engage in dynamics that drain me." These statements are not attacks, they are factual, calm, and centered on your life. By emphasizing growth, you signal that your decision is independent of their reaction and therefore untouchable. The narcissist cannot argue with your pursuit of self-respect or personal goals without exposing their own limitations and dependency on control. This approach also minimizes emotional ammunition. There are no accusations to refute, no explanations to challenge, and no anger to provoke defensively. Without material to manipulate, narcissists are left with the stark reality that they have lost someone who was once available to their control. The clarity of purpose in your message forces them to confront what they cannot recover, not because they are incapable of reflection, but because their sense of identity is tied to dominance and dominance has been removed. Moreover, framing the goodbye around growth communicates resilience. It signals to them and to others that you are moving forward, not dwelling in pain or conflict. Narcissists often react to power and perception. Seeing you evolve and detach from their influence triggers the deepest regret because it exposes the truth they cannot change. You are no longer theirs to control, and the choice to leave is both deliberate and irreversible. Timing is one of the most critical elements when delivering a goodbye message to a narcissist because the impact is amplified when it is unexpected and decisive. Narcissists thrive on predictability, control, and the ability to anticipate how you will react. If you give them hints of departure too early, argue about your boundaries repeatedly, or engage in extended explanations, you give them time to prepare, manipulate, or subtly sabotage your decision. The moment of finality must arrive when they least expect it. A clean, clear, and composed declaration that leaves no room for negotiation. This element of surprise intensifies the emotional shock, creating a visceral sense of loss that hits immediately. The timing also signals certainty. Narcissists are finely tuned to uncertainty because uncertainty keeps people reactive and pliable. If your goodbye comes after weeks or months of wavering, hesitation, or ongoing debate, it can be dismissed or minimized. But a message delivered with calm decisiveness demonstrates that the choice is non-negotiable, that it is not a whim, and that you are no longer available for their manipulation. The clarity of timing communicates strength and stability, which contrasts sharply with the instability they rely on to maintain control. This contrast is what triggers both confusion and regret. They are confronted with a person who has regained autonomy and who refuses to participate in their drama. Strategic timing also maximizes the psychological impact. It ensures that your boundaries are established before any further provocation, before attempts at guilt or charm, and before they can frame the narrative in their favor. By delivering the goodbye at the right moment, you remove their opportunity to engage you emotionally or socially. They are left to process the reality of the loss on their own, without influence or interference. The shock is immediate because it disrupts the patterns they expect. The predictable engagement, the predictable reaction, and the predictable continuation of control. In essence, timing turns a goodbye into a psychological turning point. It demonstrates that you are the one in control of your life and your choices, and it leaves the narcissist confronting a loss they neither anticipated nor can easily recover from. The right moment makes the goodbye unforgettable, triggering instant regret and reflection. Once a goodbye message is delivered, the silence that follows is just as important as the words themselves because it reinforces the power of finality and removes any opportunity for the narcissist to regain control. Narcissists are trained to exploit dialogue, explanations, or emotional reactions, so any attempt to justify, clarify, or defend your decision gives them fresh material to manipulate. By stepping back completely after delivering the message, you deny them the engagement they need to feel influential. Your silence communicates that the decision is firm, non-negotiable, and emotionally grounded. It is not up for debate, reinterpretation, or challenge. This absence of response becomes a psychological mirror, forcing the narcissist to confront the reality that they have lost access to your attention, energy, and emotional supply. Silence also magnifies regret because it creates space for reflection. Without your reactions, they are left to wrestle with their own miscalculations, the opportunities they wasted, and the influence they can no longer exert. Every attempt they might make to guilt, charm, or provoke you falls flat, echoing in the vacuum of your absence. The more composed and consistent your silence, the deeper the recognition that they cannot regain what they have lost. In this way, silence functions like a boundary in action, visible, unyielding, and self-respecting, yet entirely non-confrontational. Additionally, silence prevents any narrative manipulation. Narcissists often try to frame situations to make themselves appear reasonable or victimized, particularly if they can provoke a defensive reaction from you. By not engaging, you remove the chance for them to spin the story or claim you overreacted, ensuring that your autonomy and decision remain intact. Others who observe the dynamic also begin to recognize the clarity and finality of your position, reinforcing your authority over the situation and further isolating the narcissist's influence. Ultimately, silence after a goodbye is an extension of the message itself. It communicates strength, detachment, and self-sovereignty without the need for additional words. The combination of decisive words and consistent silence leaves the narcissist with no foothold, provoking reflection, envy, and the realization that what they lost is both permanent and irrevocable. The emotional aftermath for a narcissist after receiving a definitive goodbye is often intense, immediate, and deeply destabilizing, because it confronts them with a reality they are ill-equipped to handle. They have lost someone they relied on for validation and control. Narcissists are used to shaping the world around them to meet their needs, but a final goodbye removes their influence entirely. This loss triggers a mix of emotions: shock, envy, regret, and sometimes desperation, all at once. They may obsess over the message, replay interactions in their mind, and ruminate on what they could have done differently, not because they genuinely care about growth, but because they cannot tolerate the sudden absence of emotional supply. Regret is almost instantaneous because they understand at some level the magnitude of the loss. Unlike typical relationships, where conflicts might be negotiated or repaired, the goodbye message communicates finality. There is no further argument to win, no charm to deploy, and no emotional manipulation that can alter the outcome. For someone whose self-worth depends on dominance and control, this realization is crushing. They are forced to confront the fact that they underestimated your autonomy, resilience, and clarity, and that the person they tried to control is now fully independent. This emotional impact is compounded by envy. Narcissists often measure themselves against others and covet qualities they lack. When your goodbye demonstrates calm, self-respect, and a clear vision for your life, it highlights the very traits they cannot access or maintain. They see your strength and growth and cannot replicate it, which intensifies their internal discomfort. Finally, The lasting power of the goodbye is reinforced by your continued detachment and silence. By refusing to re engage, you prevent them from regaining access to the emotional influence they crave. Left alone with the consequences of their behavior, the narcissist experiences the full weight of loss, the regret, the awareness of control denied, and the realization that some things, like your respect, attention, and presence, cannot be reclaimed. This combination of shock, reflection, and helplessness is what makes a goodbye message so devastatingly effective, leaving an indelible mark on a narcissist's psyche.